say hello. Oh no. This is going to be my planned C-section, my birth story. I just want to start the vlog out with Jackson, but he is in a very bad mood. So we're finally recording this on his 2-month birthday. Is it a birthday? He's 2 months old today. And now we're going to go see Daddy because we're very, very grumpy, but we wanted to say hello. Hello. Daddy's behind the scenes shaking a blanket. It's not really working. Okay. No, I probably just talked for 20 minutes thinking I had recorded this video and now I gotta start over. Oh, didn't hit record. Okay, so, yes. I'm gonna go through some TMI stuff in here. I'm gonna go through why I needed a C-section, kind of like how I've talked to family members and stuff that, and this is gonna be a long video, so if you don't like those, yeah. I have talked to family members, a lot of family members, because for some reason this happens a lot in my family, but I've also talked to some friends that have experienced both and some like acquaintances. I talked to people that have had an emergency C-section and a planned C-section, so I could kind of give you guys an idea of some of the differences. I mean, in the end, recovery-wise, after the first couple days, your recovery is going to be about the same because you're having the exact same surgery, but I'm just going to tell this to you guys now. The big difference is people saying like when they go into an emergency C-section, they have been in labor for hours. And in my family, for hours and crowning, baby going back in. I talked to somebody that's kind of an acquaintance and she had an emergency C-section and she actually had to get an episiotomy. Am I saying that right? Where they like cut your vagina for the baby to come out. And so she had stitches down there and she had a C-section. And then I've talked to people, you know, that just were in labor and it never progressed and they ended up in it. But it's just like so physically taxing on their body. By the time they said they went into the C-section, they don't remember anything. They don't remember anything after. The next day was really hard for them, or that if they had that surgery in the morning or something, that full day was hard for them. That 24 hours after the surgery was like incredibly hard for them compared to when they had a planned C-section. So that's the big difference there from what everyone's telling me that's been through both is the first 24 hours after the C-section, there was a big difference in remembering things and like pain and exhaustion and stuff like that because you've been through so much. You've been through labor and stuff. Another thing to keep in mind too is what's going on around you is going to affect things. For instance, my best friend, her husband passed away right before their baby was born. And that was incredibly hard for her to be 9 months pregnant and to lose your spouse right before your perfect baby comes into the world. And then on top of that, I've never talked about this in my videos or anything, but at this point, I don't think she'll care. Her ex-in-laws are the worst people in the world, And they, on top of her birth already being emotionally difficult, physically difficult, they thought Liam was smaller than he was supposed to be. He ended up being bigger. He couldn't come out. He was just too big for her. She's a smaller, she's very small. I say very small. She's short and she's small. So Liam was a big guy and he was not coming out that way at all. So that was another really physically draining thing on her. She was in labor for 19 hours. So you want to think on top of like being in labor for that long and going into emergency C-section, she had all this emotional stuff going on around her. Her husband not being there. These awful people just making her birth experience terrible. At one point, security was called. I won't get into all of it, but so too, you have to realize too, when you go through something like an emergency one like that, and you've gone through all this physical stuff ahead of time in labor for 19 hours, and then there's all this emotional stuff involved, that's also going to be extremely difficult to recover. So keep that in mind if you have a lot of stuff going on around you or like things are bad and people aren't supportive around you, that's going to make it a little more difficult as well. So just a bunch of little things make it different, but what I take away from it, from talking to a bunch of people is after, you know, the first 24 hours, your recovery is going to be about the same. You're having the same surgery, but the before is what can really like be awful. So that's that. I'm going to leave that here. But I just want to get that information for you guys just because, I don't know, I found it interesting and helpful. And that's part of the reason. So going into why I had a planned C-section, I had heart problems my third trimester. My whole pregnancy was wonderful. I did everything well. I only gained 5 pounds in my pregnancy. And after I had Jackson, I lost 20, like within the first 2 weeks. So I'm thinner than I was pre-pregnancy, although I think I'm gaining weight. So I don't want to jinx myself. I think I've gained a little weight since then. So yeah, my whole pregnancy was wonderful. My doctor said she was so proud of me. And in the end, like after I had him, she, like the day after my surgery and everything, she kept telling me, you did everything perfectly. There was nothing you could have done to prevent this. I got superimposed preeclampsia at the end. Tachycardia, I don't know if I'm saying that right, but where your heart beats really, really fast. And then I had something wrong with my heart that the cardiologist that the hospital, or she sent me to, that was like in the hospital, who was awful. And it's funny enough that my cardiologist, that's always been my cardiologist, because I have high blood pressure on and off, I said that doctor's name. He was like, oh my God, I can't believe they sent you to that doctor. Like, that's how bad this guy was. But what ended up actually happening is my heart thickened a little bit during pregnancy. Not enough to be the serious condition, but it's like kind of borderline, so we're just going to watch it. But that was responsible for a lot of the rapid heartbeat I was experiencing, fainting, feeling like I couldn't breathe. And the other cardiologists couldn't figure that out, and that just like blows my mind, considering I had an echocardiogram with him, I had one with my doctor found it right away. So those are the reasons I was delivered at 37 weeks, because with preeclampsia, the hospital neonatal, I don't know if I'm saying that right, the specialist, the high-risk doctor, said that they don't like patients going past 37 weeks with preeclampsia, because that's when things go downhill, when mommy's life gets in danger and the baby's life. So that is why I was going to be delivered at 37 weeks. Now the decision to go from, okay, are we having a C-section or are we going to induce you, was made by my doctor, and she let me have a say in it. You know, she was like, what do you think? She wanted to get my feelings about it, but her opinion was the planned C-section was the safest thing. And also there's some kind of calculator, and I cannot remember the name of it, that they can use, that can calculate based on effacement, how they've dropped, you know, your cervix and all that stuff, if you were going to end up in, what the percentage is of you ending up in a C-section. And I was not effaced. He had dropped. My cervix had not opened. It was not hard, but it was not soft. It was like, meh. And when she put all this stuff in the calculator, I had a 70% chance of ending up in a C-section. And with everything going on with my heart, and what had happened at 35 weeks, which I will get into that in a second, because I actually had gone into labor at 35 weeks, and I didn't progress at all. And that's another thing that made kind of like a big decision of should we even try to induce. All those things put together, the decision was made that the planned C-section was the safest thing for me and Jackson. And I'm glad I did it. So what I'm about to tell you guys about my recovery and all that stuff, I want you to keep in mind, if you're just stumbling across this channel, I have a chronic pain condition called fibromyalgia. Every single day of my life, I am in intense pain, and you just kind of become used to it. So what is painful for you, an average person, is going to be nothing for me. And that is because my tolerance has been built up from living with this pain condition. So I just want to put that out there, because I know sometimes people can get defensive when you're like, this didn't hurt, that didn't bother me. Like, just in general for anything. Like, when it comes to pain, people get defensive because they think like, well, if you say it wasn't a big deal, then what does that make me look like? You know what I mean? So I just want to put that out there, that this is not a normal person's experience. I had told one family member when I had gone into labor that it wasn't really that big a deal. Like, I thought like labor would have been super easy if I had been able to have it that way. And it wasn't like to offend anyone. It was just like, that was my opinion because of my experience and because of my pain condition. And it was almost offensive that they're like, well, you must not have had real labor because blah, blah, blah. Even though my contractions were a minute apart, they were big contractions. The nurses kept coming in there. My doctor had to be called. I was being checked. They were like shocked that I was like, this really isn't a big deal. And it's not, it's just like, I'm not average pain-wise. So keep in mind some of that when I'm telling the story, because a C-section is a major surgery. It is a major operation. It is nothing to be like about, okay? So I just want to put that out there. Labor is an intense thing on your body. It is like a major thing. Again, not something to be like, no big deal about, because a lot of people, it's intensely painful for. So, where was I? All right, so at 35 weeks, I was really shocked because they had told me that they might put me in the hospital overnight to observe me because of how my blood pressure was doing. It was going into stroke range. It was dropping so low that like it was like dangerously low. It was just doing these insane things. I was fainting. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't sit up half the time. So basically before both my baby showers, they tried to put me in the hospital and I fought it. So the Monday after my last baby shower, I came into the doctor. Again, I was like fainting. My blood pressure is insane. She's like, that's it. You're going to the hospital. And I was thinking, okay, for overnight monitoring. And she was like, and you're staying there until he comes. And I was like, y'all said you aren't going to deliver me to like 37 weeks. What do you mean? I'm 35 weeks. I'm going to be in the hospital for 2 weeks. I freaked out emotionally because my dogs, and even though I've had Jackson now, yes, I love my child more than my dogs. Obviously, my baby is my world. I've never loved somebody so much as I love Jackson. But my puppies, they are still my babies. And they are like, I love them so much. And I am with them every single day. I've never been away from them for that long. And they're my major source of comfort for me. So to be told like I wouldn't see them for 2 weeks, I had a meltdown, emotional meltdown. So they put me in the hospital. What happened was they strapped me with the monitors. They strapped them on me and basically I couldn't move because I don't know if it's just because like I'm overweight, but like my belly was like a pregnant belly. It wasn't like lumpy or anything, but for some reason, anytime I moved just a little bit, the monitors would pop off, flip off. It was so annoying. So basically they're like, I'm sorry, sweetie, you've got to sit still. Don't move around. We've got to watch the baby. We need to know what's going on. We've got to watch your blood pressure. Your cuff slides every time you move. So basically I was like in the hospital. And after a full day of that, I started going into labor because my fibromyalgia pain got so bad that the high-risk specialist thought that's what triggered the labor. And they ended up releasing me like that night, the next day. So I went to labor that night. The next day, that evening, they ended up releasing me because they wanted me to try to keep Jackson in as long as possible for like health reasons. You know, every day counts at that point. And so they sent me home because they wanted me to be comfortable. And, but I had to go in constantly to the doctors and be strapped to the monitor for an hour each time so they could check Jackson. I was getting like so many ultrasounds a week. They were checking my blood pressure. I had to take my blood pressure all the time. So I was monitored at home, but they ended up sending me home because of that. It was just like, because I had gone into labor, when the labor started, it was like little baby contractions, and the nurse was like, you're having contractions, do you feel that? I was like, no, you know, like I don't feel that. And they got more and more intense as the night went on, and it was like probably 6 hours of the contractions that were a minute apart, and they were big contractions, and the nurses kept coming in there and being like, are you really like not feeling this? I was like, no, I don't give a shit about that. My fibromyalgia is killing me. Like I could feel them at that point, and it wasn't pleasant, but it wasn't like, I mean, it wasn't a big deal to me, like pain wise, based on my like pain condition. So I was like, no, but my fibro is really killing me. And to the point where I was ending up crying over my fibromyalgia, and the nurse was like, oh, sweetie, just breathe in between the contractions. And I was just like, it's not the contractions. I was just like going crazy. And the night nurses kept joking. They're like, you'd be that lady that came in like, I think I'm in labor and the baby's halfway out of you. I'm like, probably. So that was that experience in the hospital. And the next day when the high-risk specialist did an ultrasound and checked me out and went over everything that happened the night before. And my doctor had come in at like 4 a.m. at that point, and they had checked me and nothing was progressing. And she was like, I'm not going to stop it if you're in labor. We're going to let him come naturally. But she's like, this labor's not doing anything. You're just having these contractions. Like, you're not actually, nothing's changing down there. And he decided that the best thing to keep Jackson in would be to send me home where I'm comfortable, but intense monitoring during that time. And it was a very uncomfortable 2 weeks. It's kind of a blur to me because I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move around. If I moved around, my blood pressure shot up, and then sometimes it dropped down low and I would faint. And it was just like a horrible 2 weeks. And every night I would cry because I was so uncomfortable. I was scared, like, because I couldn't breathe all the time. But then at the same time, I didn't want him to come early. I wanted him to like wait till 37 weeks so he was like more healthier, you know. It was just a blur. So finally around 36 weeks, my doctor was like, okay, we need to make the decision of what we're doing. We're going to induce and use, I think, magnesium drip because of high blood pressure, or we are going to do a planned C-section. And like I said, they had a calculator. My chance was 70%. We decided to do the planned C-section. And she also didn't want to induce me because of how my body reacted to being strapped to monitors. She said with that included, aside from the calculating thing, she said, I know you're going to end up in a C-section. So we went ahead with that. A couple days before, I went into like a pre-surgery blood work and kind of like meeting with this nurse or whatever. I want to say this too. Every hospital is different. A lot of people have told me on YouTube I didn't have to, like, I could wear makeup or I didn't have to do this or that. Every hospital is different. This is just what my hospital did. I'm going to show you guys this because I saved it just for this video. I have this huge packet of information on exactly how to wash my body before surgery. And they gave me 2 of these packs with like this special antiseptic wash that I had to leave on. I had to like work from the top down. I couldn't get it on my nipples because I was going to be breastfeeding. And I had to like work in sections and leave it on for a minute on each section and like rinse it off. And it was this whole thing. And then like I had to sleep in clean sheets. And then I had to, what else was it? I sleep in clean sheets. I had to use a clean towel. And the next morning I had to do it all over again before the surgery. Again, a fresh clean towel. Justin had to make sure he got my back, they said. It was just like this crazy washing process. And then when I got to the hospital, I checked in. They started my IV. The nurse there had to shave me because they told me on the phone when I set up that meeting like 5 days before, she was like, don't shave. Let the nurse shave you. That was an awkward experience, the beginning of many. And then she kept cleaning with this special wipe, like where the incision was going to be, like every 15 minutes before the surgery. And then my doctor got there. I told my dad and stepmom bye. Justin got suited up in his stuff and they put like cap thing on me. And we walked back to the OR basically. They sat him outside the OR. I went in the OR by myself. So then we get in there, and so I was getting a spinal block. That is what my doctor chose. I don't know if they do epidurals for planned, but spinal block was chosen for me. One thing they don't tell you is there's a recovery from the spinal block, and I did not know that, and it's up to 9 months. And I wish I had known that because at this point I wish I had had an epidural, because the epidural doesn't go into your spinal fluid. The spinal block does actually go into. I'll try to do a picture in here somewhere to show you the difference of where it goes. But the actual spinal block is what I was terrified of because I'm scared of needles, and the thought of one going into my back terrified me. It was a huge needle. I should not have turned around and looked at it. But basically they numbed it before with this. That hurt more than the spinal block, I'll be honest. The stuff they use to kind of numb it before they go in with a giant ass needle, that hurt more. It stung and it was like really uncomfortable. And then they go in with the big needle, and I didn't really feel that. I did feel some like weird pressure, but it didn't hurt. It wasn't anywhere near as scary as I thought it would be. Like really didn't hurt at all. And then you just start going numb instantly. They lay you down. They did tell me ahead of time that I would would feel like I couldn't breathe. And I was like, that's been my whole 3rd trimester. I haven't been able to breathe. Oh my gosh. That was the worst part of the surgery for me. Like, the not being able to breathe. I didn't realize how intense and scary it was going to be when they're like, you can't breathe. You cannot breathe. Like, it is insane. So basically what happened was, as soon as they laid me down, I was just like, and it just started getting worse and worse and worse. And I was like, no, I really can't breathe. It's like, you're breathing, look at the monitor, you're breathing, you're okay, you're breathing. And I was freaking out because it reminded me of, I have asthma, and it wasn't even as bad as an asthma attack. That's how bad it was. It was worse. It was like when you get the wind knocked out of you, that first like second or two where you're just like, that's what it felt like. It was, and I was like that too. I was like, Justin came in, I'm over there like, when he comes in and they bring him in at the very last minute, I'm just like freaking out, and I'm like trying to breathe. And they had oxygen. They put an oxygen mask on me. They're like, you're breathing, you're getting oxygen, you're okay. And I was like, you know, like, get it off me, because my arms are strapped down. And I was like, it's making it worse. And so then they put the nose tube in, and that was that wasn't as bad as the mask thing, but I was still like, and I was convinced I was dying. Like, I was just convinced I was dying. But I guess that distracted me from, I mean, I felt a little tug here and there, but really the spinal block, I couldn't feel anything. So yeah, that was like, oh, that was intense. The breathing thing was the worst part of the surgery for me. And I still am a little like freaked out that happened. I just don't know the science behind it, but they warned me about it beforehand, but I had no idea it was going to be that bad. Like, no idea at all. So I took notes on some other stuff. Some weird things, or things I thought was weird, was, so, oh yeah, I forgot to tell you guys, also, I couldn't wear any makeup, deodorant, anything. I'm gonna be really honest. I did put a little bit of BB cream on, but it didn't matter, because when I was like, I started sweating, and it was gone. Like, it was like gone. That's the one thing, I just like, it was pointless. I shouldn't have put it on. And what else? They told me I couldn't wear deodorant, and I use really natural deodorant, and I put it on anyway. And they told me because of infection. Somebody commented on my birth vlog that it's because your color will change and all that stuff. Yes, that's the main reason, but also anything that you were not born with that is not a part of your body, the nurse told me a thing, is a risk for infection. So makeup is a risk for infection, but it's also so they can see the color of your face. Whatever. So I did put a little bit of deodorant on, not a lot. I use natural stuff, just a little, just because I probably shouldn't, but it's just the thought of like, I'm already gonna look horrible. I'm gonna have a catheter hanging out when my family comes in. I'm not gonna have any makeup on. I refuse to stink. Like, I just refuse. So that's another thing. They said I couldn't wear makeup. So I also, let me see. They did a roll call before. I thought that was weird, but I guess they record the surgery. And they did a double roll call. So they did the roll call, and then they did it again. Everybody was like, this is Dr. So-and-so, blah, blah, blah. All the nurses did it. And I'm like, who are they talking to? At this point, I'm like, what is going on? Do I say something? This is Heather. I'm the patient. Like, it was weird. I found that very weird. And then there's the shaking thing from the anesthesia. I didn't get that till after I had been put into recovery. And then I was just like, ugh, a couple times. I see people like get really shaky, but that only happen to me a couple times. So, all right, then let's see. They let Justin come in at the very last minute. They had him sit next to me. They don't let you take photos or videos until the baby is out and like on the warmer, and then they let him take whatever. But Justin was so nervous about it, we didn't get many pictures. And then he was taking them vertically like this for some reason, and I was just like, babe, really? But he was nervous because he didn't know, like, because the hospital, like, every doctor's different, every hospital's different. It bothered me at first, but then as I got to know my doctor, she is one of the best doctors I've ever had in my life. So she could have been like, you can't take any pictures, and I'd have been fine with it because she's literally the best doctor I've ever had. So he couldn't take pictures or anything, but he sat there. They let him have the phone for like after he come out, and after Jackson had come out, the nurse also took pictures of us, like holding him and stuff. I'll do pictures in here somewhere. But so yeah, that was the thing about the phone. This might be kind of jumbled because I have like notes. So once she started cutting into me, you could smell my flesh burning. And this is things that people I know that had emergency C-sections don't remember any of this. And this is where, like, one of my cousins said, this is where it's creepy or like scary in different ways. It's like when you go in there, it's scary because you've been in labor this long, blah, blah, and you don't remember anything. But she said then there's this scary part where you go in and you're fully awake, like, oh my God, and you're very aware that they're doing these things to you, and it's freaky. So Justin, I was like, you could smell like my flesh burning as they like cut into it, and I was like, oh my gosh. And after I got out of surgery, I'm like, could you smell my flesh burning? He was like, yeah. And it's just like a very creepy, weird feeling knowing that they're cutting you open. And then to add to that, my doctor had a student with her my whole pregnancy, and I was fine with it. I'm always okay with that when a doctor has a student with them learning. That doesn't bother me. But I didn't realize during surgery, she'd be like, and this is the such and such vein, and right here, do you see this? This is blah, 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 like about my insides. And it's like, it didn't bother me that she was showing this nurse my insides or the student my insides. What bothered me is I could hear it. And that just reminded me that my guts are all out on the table. Not literally out, but like I'm literally open, like hip to hip down there on the table. So that was kind of freaky. Another thing that kind of freaked me out was, so they pulled him out. As soon as they pulled him out, they showed me him over the cover. They took him to the warmer. That really, and they cleaned him off and they bundled him up and they gave him to Justin, and then Justin brought him to me. I didn't get to do skin to skin right away. I'm gonna try not to get emotional. Ugh, that really bothered me. That was a very hard thing. A lot of people think like, oh, C-sections are so easy, but they're very emotional. Like I didn't get that skin to skin right away. I didn't get it till recovery. I know some places do clear drapes and they do that, but my hospital doesn't. So, it might not have been, even if they did, it might not have been an option because of my blood pressure they were worried about. So they had, I was strapped still. So I got to see him. I got to be next to him. Justin put him like really close to me, but I didn't actually get to hold him till recovery. And that was really hard emotionally. And they let him stay in there next to me for a while, and they took pictures of us, and but then they took him out of the room like, ugh. He was probably went to recovery 15 minutes before I did, and that was really hard too. I was like, oh, my baby, bring my baby back. But once I went to recovery, they immediately put him on me skin to skin. We breastfed. We had an hour together as just a little family. So I did get that, but emotional. I didn't get that he's on my chest right away, because when they do deliveries at the hospital, they told us during the hospital tour, immediately the baby's on your chest when you have it vaginally. Anything they do to the baby, they do it on you. But obviously with the surgery, they don't do that. So that was really hard for me emotionally, because I really wanted a vaginal birth, but I also didn't want to take the risk with everything that was going on towards the end of my pregnancy when that decision had to be made. So I'm just a little choked up about that. So let's see, did I forget anything? You should see my notes. Smelling my own flesh, shaking, nurse saying another layer. Okay. This is another thing that mentally screwed with me. On top of being like the whole time, that being scary enough, and the whole like, here's for such and such vein. Then there was the nurse that once she started sewing me up, I mean, obviously when they do a C-section, it's a major operation. They cut your skin, and if you have fat, then your like muscle, whatever they do to that, and then they cut into your uterus. And so there's layers of stitches they have to do. The freaking nurse in the OR kept laying down, just one more layer, just one more layer. And I was like, could you stop saying that to me? I'm aware that I'm getting layers of stitches inside me. I don't need to be reminded. That was a little annoying and a bit much. So she kept saying that, and that really annoyed me. And then let's see what else. I feel like I will have forgotten stuff, but I'm just trying to do this best I can 2 months after. So like I said, then I went to recovery. I got to hold him. I got to do skin to skin, all that stuff. Another thing, they kept putting something in my IV. It started when I started freaking out saying I couldn't breathe. I don't know if they were trying to like
calm me down. But every time she'd shoot this stuff in my IV, like I could see her give me a little more, I'd be like, ugh, and I kept wanting to fall asleep, which is a weird feeling when you feel like you can't breathe. So, and that was after Jackson was out and I saw him, and it was right before they took, it was probably like 10 minutes before they sent Justin to recovery, they started shooting the stuff in my IV, and I don't know what it was, but I kept being like, oh my God, I kept wanting to fall asleep on the table. But then I had this weird mental thing where I was like, if I fall asleep, what if they think I'm like dying or something? So I was like, no, you gotta stay awake. And so I kept like making myself stay awake, and they kept shooting this in me. Another thing too that they put into my IV was, I believe it was, they put morphine in your spinal block as a measure of pain thing, but they also gave me Oxycontin, which I don't know if it's because I have a pain condition. I take, like when I am extreme pain, like with my fibromyalgia, like an extreme flare, I have the like probably the strongest Vicodin they prescribe and stuff. So I'm like, I have a high tolerance for pain medicine too because of that. What somebody might be laying out high as a kite on, I can function completely on. And I try not to take that medication. I don't even take daily medication for my fibromyalgia, but so I don't know if that's why they gave it to me, but I remember being like, holy shit, like that's the first time ever a pain medicine has made me like, hello. So when I got into recovery or whatever, I remember it, I don't remember how long it was, and I think it was because whatever they were shooting in the IV and like the pain medication. And then I went to my room and got settled. Justin went and got our family. I remember I texted my best friend like pretty much right after surgery and recovery. I was texting Crystal. I sent a picture too because we hadn't told anyone about the planned C-section except family and my best friend. And I had told a couple of good friends that I went through the infertility with what was going on. And I sent them a picture right away. But yeah, I told his godfather. I told very few people, and I didn't tell, I just wanted it to be, I had gone through so much at that point. I didn't want people bothering me or texting me, and family. I know they'd have good intentions, but honestly, I just wanted to be left alone. My only focus was to get him out, and I just was so like, everybody leave me alone, that I told my family, I will murder you if you tell anyone that this is like when the C-section is. If I start getting texts asking like, what time is it? Can I come up there? Blah, blah, blah. I will murder you. So I was very secretive about that. And that was just because that's what I needed emotionally and mentally. So I was with it enough to be texting her and being like, come up here and blah, blah, blah. And so I was telling her like, yeah, because I didn't want her to come up and wait because she has a baby too, Liam. And that way she could just leave Liam once she knew Jackson was here and she was ready to come up instead of waiting in the waiting room. So yeah, that's pretty much it. They put me into the recovery room, and then I went to my room, and at the time I thought I was super coherent, but I look back and I was like, I was fucked up. Like, sorry if you don't like cursing, but I was high as a kite. When I look back on it now, but at the time I was like, I've got that, like, I'm fine, like, I'm great, you know, but I didn't, looking back, I was high as a kite. But even being high as a kite, I can still remember his first diaper change was, he pooped, his first poop, Crystal changed his diaper, and Justin, he could not remember that, because I remember saying at one point, I was editing a vlog, and it was the birth vlog, and I said something about like, this is his first diaper change. No, wait, Crystal changed his first diaper. This is Daddy's first diaper change. And when Justin watched that, he's like, what are you talking about? I had his first diaper change, didn't I? Or he's like, Crystal didn't change the diaper, did she? And I was like, yeah, she did. I was high as a kite, and I remember that. And I remember like being like, you changed his diaper, right? And she's like, yeah, I changed his diaper. Because I remember Justin trying to hand me one wipe for a poopy. And so I was out of it, but then I still remember stuff. And that's another thing. People that went through an emergency one don't really remember anything. Like, I was like a space cadet, but I at least remember stuff. And afterwards, after everything wore off, I totally remember that night. It was great. It was, you know, me and Justin, because the nurses at the pre-surgery thing told me, sweetie, look, if you're going to have family come up here, you just want them to kind of come up, and then they should probably leave, because she's like, it's not pretty when I had planned C-section. She's like, you're gonna have a catheter, and then we're going to let your family visit you and stuff, and then we're going to start coming in and doing something called vaginal washes, and we're going to start pushing on your stomach and stuff. So I did not want people there for that, and I just told them they're going to give till like they said they would give till like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and then they were going to start doing that stuff, so it would be best to cut visitors off for the first day at that time. So my C-section was at 7 a.m. He was born at 7:40, but I didn't go back until like 7:05, but a lot of that was prep. As soon as they cut into me, he was out within like 2 minutes. It was crazy. But so my family and the people I told that day came up, and it was just Crystal. Was basically my best friend was the only one I had to come up there that wasn't immediate family. And so after everyone left, I was very coherent. Like, I remember that. And that's another thing. Like, a lot of my friends or family members that had the emergency C-section, they don't remember shit from that day. It was just a draining day for them. But it was nice, like, that Justin and I could, you know, have that time together. And it was, you know, you lose a lot of dignity. They would come in there and they push on my stomach. Not like hard near my C-section, but like more up here, and they'd add pressure, and then they'd like pull, like basically when you come out with C-section 2, they put you on like a doggy pee pad. It's, you know, one of those like incontinent pads, and you've got like nothing on down there, and you have like a catheter, obviously. The catheter didn't hurt. It didn't hurt coming out. It just felt like weird pressure. That's another thing that freaked me out was the catheter. But yeah, you're just, and then they put a blanket over you when everyone's in there. But you got your pee pad hanging out. You got, you know, you're sitting there with no underwear on, just bleeding everywhere. So they would come in, they'd push on my stomach, and they'd just take my sheet off, and it didn't matter who was coming in and out. The nurse would keep, like, you know, like, open my legs, so she'd move my legs because I still couldn't move them. And she'd wash my vagina, basically, clean it up. She'd roll me, change my doggy pee pad, basically, and they were doing that every couple hours. So I can see now why they were like, you probably don't want visitors. So there was that, and the next day I was able to get the catheter out and the IV out, and then I felt more normal. I didn't feel so strapped down, you know. But the first night was terrible because they put the leg compression things on you so that your legs you don't get like a blood clot or whatever. The battery on that died. My IV would run out. It'd set an alarm off. And they did not just run right in there when these alarms went off. And so they'd wake us up if what little sleep we had gotten, and I'd be like, oh my God. And Justin and I get so annoyed. At one point, Justin was trying to turn my IV off. I was like, please don't do that. Don't do that. Like, don't do it yourself. Let the nurse come in and turn the alarm off. But it was just getting so annoying. So the first night was awful, and that, you know, that kept happening. But like our quality time together and stuff was great. Like bonding with Jackson was great. I do feel like not being able to have him skin to skin and breastfeed him right after he came out of me did kind of probably affect some of my issues with low milk supply. Besides having polycystic ovarian syndrome, like that's probably against me too, because C-sections, from what I understand, can have a lower rate of breastfeeding success. He did breastfeed right after the best he could because he had issues with latching, and I've been over that in other videos. We had to use a nipple shield, and we did so much, and finally at 2 months he just latches on like that. But it took a long time. It was a big struggle. I'm trying to think what else. So the next day when I got out of bed, she wanted me to eat breakfast, the nurse, and she's like, then I'm going to bring your pain medicine because your spinal block morphine is gone. Everything's out of your system. You have no pain medicine now. And that's another thing. They kept asking me, where's your pain at? And I was like, you know, and I remember kept having to tell nurses, I'm like, I have a pain condition. That's why it's like this. I'm not, you know, like, because I remember them being like, what, you know? So the next day I felt like I had to fart so bad. Not fart, I had to poop. I thought I had to poop so bad. Sorry, it ended up being a fart. And I was panicking because like they were doing Jackson's hearing test. There was like people in the room. I was like, I'm about to shit myself in a room full of people. Like, this is like not cool. So when the nurse, I called her in, I'm like, I need to get out. Like, is it okay for me to stand for the first time? And she's like, no, I need you to take pain medicine. You cannot stand after your C-section for the first time without pain medicine. You can't. You'll fall. Like, it'll be terrible. And I was like, yeah, I can, because I'm about to shit myself and I cannot wait 45 minutes for the pain meds to kick in. And she really tried to talk me out of it. I don't think she thought I was really going to be able to stand without the pain medicine. But so I was like, please take this catheter out and let me go to the bathroom. I was like, please give me this dignity, because like decency, I really feel like I'm going to shit myself with everyone in here. I didn't even care. The hearing tech lady was hearing all this. I didn't care. So she was like, okay. She pulled my catheter out or whatever, and she lowered the side of the bed thing, and she's like, all right, okay. Like, she really thought I was not going to be able to do this. And people said that is the worst part of a C-section, the first time you get out of bed. And I want you guys to know it was not a picnic, okay? But for me, it wasn't as bad as scary as everyone had made it seem. And again, probably because I have a chronic pain condition, okay? So I'm gonna leave that there because it is intensely painful. People have described it as the most pain they've ever felt in their life. So I want to put it out right there. It was not a picnic, but it was not as scary as I thought it was going to be. It was an intense burning sensation is what I felt. But again, it wasn't anything as scary as I thought it was going to be. And I kind of just got up out of bed, and she was like, hold on a second, because I got up out of bed and I had my pole, and I was going to the bathroom before I shit myself. I was like getting out of there really quick. And she's like, hold on, just take a second. And I was like, okay, let myself feel this. It did, but I'm not going to lie. Like, it hurt. It did hurt, but it wasn't like the worst thing I've ever felt in my life. And that's just my experience. We'll leave that out there for the 100th time. I just don't want anyone to be offended or feel like, I don't know what I want it to be like, but I just really feel like when I talk about this, sometimes people have gone through the C-section, they almost get not offended, but like, I don't know how to explain it. So I just want to be super clear about that, super clear. And I went to the bathroom or whatever, and I really thought I had to poop, and it was just this big ass fart. It was loud, and I started laughing because it was so loud. And the whole situation of all these people in the room, like the medical people in the room, and just the loudest fart of my life. And I didn't even care. And I was sitting there laughing, and the nurse stuck her head in the bathroom. She's like, are you okay? Anyways, and then she came in there and she showed me how to clean my vagina with the spray bottle they give you and all that stuff, which I didn't really feel was that necessary. I mean, like, it was in the sense that, like, after I wiped all that blood, because you bleed so much, it was nice to kind of rinse it, but it wasn't necessary in the sense that, like, right after you have a vaginal birth, you really don't want to be using toilet paper. So there was that. That was my first day. And after that, the worst part, like, once I'd be up, and I'd like to sit in chairs and stuff. The bed was really uncomfortable for me getting out of the bed. And you would think, because it like moves and does all this stuff, it would be comfortable, but for me it wasn't. It was hard to get out of with the burning sensation I'm talking about. It wasn't pleasant at all to get out of the bed with the C-section. Once I got up and I started walking, I felt a lot better. I liked sitting in chairs and stuff. Those were easier to get out of. So that's basically my experience during the hospital. And like I said, once I came home, those of you guys that follow my daily vlogs know that my incision opened up, and it wasn't anything the doctor did. It was my fault because, again, I didn't take the pain medicine, like normal people do, I guess. I just didn't really need it. Like, I took it at first, but then I was like, I don't really need it anymore. And I didn't finish it or anything. I would go up and down the stairs like it was nothing, and it's my bad. I shouldn't have done that. But in my head, I'm like, this isn't bad. I don't feel anything, like this isn't as bad as I thought it would be. Occasionally I would feel like the burn or pain, and I'd be like, oh, I should probably take it easy. But I ended up having my C-section open in 2 spots, and they didn't get infected. And my doctor was like, you've been doing shit you're not supposed to do, I can tell. And I had, because I didn't feel the pain like a normal person. And still, one spot is still, she released me finally at 8 weeks to do whatever. One spot is taking forever to heal that opened up, but it's not deep. It's only the surface skin now that is open. It's not any deeper like it was. So yeah, that is my recovery, I guess. It wasn't that bad for me. ooh, there's thunder. The worst part of my recovery wasn't the C-section, it was the spinal. And I say that because my back has not felt the same since I got that spinal. I get pressure up and down it. There was one time, like I said, it's going to be TMI. There was one time that I was trying to poop, because the constipation is real after a C-section. And my doctor said everything gets moved around. You've had abdominal surgery. You don't poop for the first, like, I didn't poop for like 5 days, which is not normal for me as a vegetarian. And when I finally did poop, it was like the worst thing of my life. Like the pooping, trying to poop, it was horrible. My butt was bleeding. It's just TMI. My ass was bleeding all the time. I needed a pad for my ass too. It was just like, it would start coming out and go back in. It was terrible. You guys, it was the worst constipation ever. And I was a big baby about it because I never have constipation. And so that was horrible, but, I don't even remember why I started talking about this. I don't know. Oh yeah, one of the times I was in there, and they say don't push, but it's like, how the hell you can get this giant ball of poop out your butt if you don't push, you know? And so one of the times I was pushing lightly, and I got paralyzed for a second. Like my back went, like I got this shooting pressure up my back, and I got paralyzed for a second, and it was terrifying. I also, whenever I held jacks or held anything with weight or walked around too long, I would get that pressure and pain in my back, and it would start where the spinal was. There's also this huge bruise on my back for a while after the spinal. But yeah, nobody tells you, and I still feel it to this day. I'm like 2 months out and I still get pain in my back. And I was told that it can take up to 9 months to fully feel recovered from a spinal, which is something I didn't know. But that's been like the worst pain for me. Another thing, so I talked about pooping, that was a big issue for me. And the last thing is pissing myself. I will always be open with you guys and no shame. TMI is no thing here. I peed myself a lot in my pregnancy. I did Kegels, whatever, like constantly. I do them all the time, you know. But it didn't matter. I peed myself like just a little bit here and there. Sometimes I'd fully pee myself if I coughed really hard. But after my surgery, I pissed myself anytime I laughed. Coughing too, but when I laughed was the worst. It was just like there was no trying to stop it or anything. Just full on pissed myself everywhere. And the first time it happened, I was like, thank God I'm in a pad for bleeding. And still to this day, so it's not that bad anymore. 2 months out, like I said. But the first month, I would just completely piss myself. I had to wear giant pads because that was an issue. And I talked to my doctor. I'm like, why do I piss myself when I laugh? And she just said there's a disconnect between your brain and your body after having an abdominal surgery like that. So it has gotten better, but I'm still 2 months out. And if I laugh like a hard laugh, not just like a but if I laugh like a, you know, a decent laugh, I will start feeling like I'm going to pee myself, and I'll get a couple drops. I still get a couple of drops when I laugh, but, and I can't stop it. It's just like no stopping it. And if I'm laughing uncontrollably, then I pee myself. Like if I go into a big hard belly laugh, then hope to God I'm wearing a pad because I pee myself. When my best friend came over the other day, I made sure I put a pad on because we always laugh together, and I was like, I don't want to piss myself everywhere. So anyways, that is all I can think of. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below, and I will try to answer them the best I can. And that was just my experience. The C-section, I'm going to do a video about labor and the C-section when you have fibromyalgia. And talk about like my pregnancy in general, because I got into pregnancy in the first trimester video and then I never did one after that. So I'm going to go over like fibro stuff. I didn't want to get into too much detail because again, I don't want to offend anybody, but I will talk more about it in that video. But that is pretty much all I can think of. As a whole, it was, the recovery wasn't that bad for me. It's really bad for most people. I want to put that out there. This is not going to be a walk. If you're watching this because you're about to have a planned C-section, it's not going to be a walk in the park. And it's going to suck balls when you get up for the first time. And you're not going to be able to shit and all these horrible things. But it is going to be the best experience of your life because you're going to have this most perfect little tiny human that is half of you and half of a person you love, or maybe it's just half of you that you love about it. But you're going to be so in love afterwards that all of it's just going to like melt away. It's not going to matter. So anyways, that is my story. I will see you guys later. Like I said, if you have questions, leave them in the comment box below and I'll try to answer them. Sorry if I missed anything. 2 months out. I did the best I could. See you guys later. Bye.